Hey everyone, and welcome back to Retro Legends. Today, a PlayStation 5 is a common piece of tech, with millions of them out there. It's a modern, industrial product, made in huge numbers. But there are video games from over 30 years ago that, in the collector's market, cost way more than a new console today. These weren't mistakes in how they were made. They weren't special editions that were made limited on purpose. We're talking about the Neo Geo. SNK's home system didn't follow the usual rules of the console market. It was expensive, exclusive, and not many were made. And some of its games today have prices that go over 1,000, 2,000, sometimes even 5,000 euros. To understand why a single game can cost more than a PlayStation 5, we need to go back to how the Neo Geo model started. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more trips into the world of retro gaming. Let's get started. The Neo Geo AES wasn't made to be a different choice from regular home game systems, but as a direct extension of the multi-video system arcade setup. The big difference was in how it was built. While other game systems were made with technical compromises to keep costs down, the AES kept almost the same design as the arcade cabinet. It had a main 16-bit CPU, a special chip just for graphics, and a lot of memory for its time. The game cartridges could hold more than 300 megabits, while other 16-bit systems used much smaller cartridges. This allowed for many characters on screen at once, and rich animations that were hard to do on regular home game systems. The physical size of the cartridges wasn't just for show. They had more ROM chips, complex circuit boards, and expensive parts. Even the packaging was strong, with hard cases like VHS tapes and high-quality color manuals. Everything about it showed it was a fancy, high-end product. The price showed this industrial setup. The AES wasn't given money to be sold at a loss, which often happened with regular game consoles. SNK kept higher profits per item, making up for selling fewer units with a high price. The system wasn't trying to sell to everyone, but to be successful with a small group of people willing to pay. This plan had direct effects on how things were made. The number of items made was right for a small group of users. While a regular console could have millions of units sold, the AES had much smaller numbers. Because of this, every game was made in small amounts, especially the versions for Western countries. This created a special situation: few users, a lot of money spent on each game, and a strong love for the product. AES owners didn't just buy things randomly, they picked carefully. This made a very involved community that later helped the market for used items. Kizuna Encounter Super Tag Battle came out in 1996. It was like an upgraded version of the fighting style started by Savage Rain. The fighting system added a tag team feature that let you switch between two characters right away, and they shared the same health bar. From a technical point of view, the game was just like other SNK games at the time. Big characters, smooth movements, cool backgrounds, and music that fit the competitive vibe. But it wasn't a game changer like some other fighting games from that same time. What made this game super rare was how few copies were sold in Europe for the AES system. They made very, very few. People have different ideas about how many. But the number of copies that came to the Western market was really small, even for the already small number of AES games made. The Japanese version didn't cost as much, because it was much easier to find. Where a game was sold really changed how much it was worth. European copies, which you could tell apart by their different packaging and inserts, became a big deal for special collectors. In a market where collectors really wanted to get every game from a certain region, not having other options made people want these games even more. When games sold for over 10,000 euros, It wasn't because they were super fun to play. It was because they were so rare and collectors were fighting to get them. The price was set by big international auctions and private deals between serious collectors, not by regular buyers. Kizuna and Counter showed a common pattern with Neo Geo games. When very few copies were made, and they were only sold in a few places, being rare became more important than how fun the game was. The price of a game directly depended on how many copies were out there and how much collectors wanted to finish their already special collection. Ultimate 11. The SNK Football Championship came out in 1996. This was at a time when the AES market was already much smaller than it was in the early 90s. This game was part of a sports series that SNK mostly made for arcades. In arcades, soccer games were perfect for quick, competitive matches. However, for the home Neo Geo system, sports games weren't the main reason people bought games. Most AES users were big fans of fighting games and action titles. Games like The King of Fighters, Fatal Fury, and Samurai Shodown really defined what the system was all about. So, even though a soccer game like Ultimate 11 was technically good and looked just as great as other SNK games, it didn't get as much attention at first. This directly affected how many copies were made.
Kickoff.
The AES copies were made in small numbers, just enough for the expected low demand. This wasn't a planned limited edition. It was simply matching what they thought they would sell. Since there weren't many Neo Geo consoles out there, even a less popular game could have a very small print run. When it came to gameplay, Ultimate 11 had cool animated characters, detailed fields, and a fast arcade style that wasn't too complicated. It wasn't trying to be like the more realistic soccer games on other systems. It just wanted to feel like playing in an arcade. Today, a complete copy in good shape can cost over 3,000 to 4,000 euros. This is because not many were made, and even fewer are still around. A lot of AES cartridges weren't kept well or got lost over time. This made them even rarer for collectors. Ultimate 11 showed that in the Neo Geo world, being rare could turn a less important game into something highly sought after. Metal Slug came out in 1996. It really showed off what the Neo Geo could do. Unlike other rare games that were just hard to find, this game became famous because it was just so good. The animations were some of the best ever seen in a 2D game. Every character's move, every explosion, every destroyed vehicle had more animation frames than most games. This made the action look super smooth and full of life. The sprite work wasn't just about size, but also tiny details, like deformations, exaggerated physical reactions, and funny expressions. The art style took military themes and made them funny. The background showed city scenes, deserts, and factories, all with lots of visual layers. The humor came from small animations and things in the environment that didn't change how you played the game, but they made the game world feel richer. When it came to how it played, Metal Slug offered a really solid run-and-gun experience, with lots of different weapons and a steady pace. The difficulty was just right for intense arcade sessions. It didn't really change how games were made, but it made an existing style much better with amazing care in how it was put together. The home version, called AES, wasn't made in super small numbers like some other rare games. But still, not many people had a Neo Geo home console compared to other popular systems. Over time, the mix of the game being well known, its great quality, and its limited availability made more and more people want it. It's not uncommon to see sales of over 2,000 euros for complete copies in excellent condition. This shows how the fun of the game and its rarity balanced out. Unlike some other games where being rare was more important than being good, With Metal Slug, the high price was backed up by its strong reputation and how many different kinds of people loved it. It wasn't just Neo Geo collectors, but fans of 2D games in general. Garou, Mark of the Wolves, came out in 1999. It was the last game in the Fatal Fury series, and it really changed how SNK fighting games worked. Almost all the characters were new. They brought in new fighters, and many old favorites from the series were gone. This was a clear move away from the past, trying to make the game more modern. The top system, which stands for Tactical Offensive Position, replaced some older game rules. It let players pick a part of their health bar to get attack boosts and regain energy. Blocking became more technical, needing perfect timing that rewarded players who understood their opponent. Combos were more complex but less forgiving, which made players use a more careful style of play. Visually, this game had some of the best graphics ever on Neo Geo. The animations were super smooth, with natural changes between standing, attacking, and recovering. The backgrounds had cool moving effects and more detailed colors, all while keeping that classic SNK look.
Consumed with vengeance. But here, they do not exist.
But the game came out at a really tough time. In 1999, everyone was already playing on 32-bit and 64-bit game systems. And the AES console didn't have many people playing it anymore. SNK mostly focused on putting the game in arcade machines, called MVS, where more people could see and play it. The home version for the AES was made in small numbers, because not many people were buying it. This meant there weren't many copies available later on. Complete copies in great shape often sold for over 2,500 euros to collectors, and the price changed based on where it came from and how well it was kept. Garou showed that a really good game could become rare not by accident, but because of when it came out. Its quality wasn't enough to get more people to play it when the console was already losing popularity. The game became rare because of what was happening in the game world at the time, not because they planned to make it special or hard to find. The price of many Neo Geo games wasn't just because they were old. Age by itself didn't make them valuable. What really made a difference was a mix of things: how they were made, where they fit in the market, and how collecting changed over the years. Not many were made from the start. The number of AES cartridges made matched the small number of people who owned the console. Unlike popular consoles that had millions of users, the Neo Geo had a much smaller audience. This meant that each game was printed in much smaller numbers compared to other games. The scarcity wasn't fake. It was a direct result of how the business worked. It was for a special, high-end group of people. The high starting price of the console and games meant only a few people, who were willing to spend more than average, bought them. These people had a stronger connection with what they bought. The games weren't treated like cheap, throwaway items, but like valuable treasures. Over time, this idea helped make them seem even more special. The way they were built was also a big deal. The strong cases, thick paper inserts, detailed manuals, and even the size of the games made them feel more substantial than average. The product felt solid. This helped keep them in good shape. Games in excellent condition became highly sought after because they were well-preserved physical items. Starting in the 2000s, the global collecting market grew a lot. Online websites made it easier for buyers and sellers to connect all over the world. Collectors from different places started to want the same game copies. As more people saw these games, their prices kept going up. At the same time, people started to buy them, hoping to sell them for more later. Some buyers saw AES cartridges as valuable items, like safe investments because of how rare they were, and the good memories they brought. When investors and professional sellers joined in, it changed the original balance between loving the games and how many were available. Prices started to show not just how old or fun the game was, but also how much people thought they would be worth in the future. Because of this, the Neo Geo cartridge stopped being seen only as a game. It became a fancy physical item, made in small numbers, built very well, and wanted by more and more people around the world. Its money value became strong because of how the industry, collectors, and market all came together. The regional differences for AES weren't just about language or how the boxes looked. They directly affected how many copies were out there, and because of that, how much they cost. SNK didn't spread out their games the same way in Japan, the United States, and Europe. The main market was still Japan, where they had a better way to get games to stores and people bought them pretty steadily. This meant there were usually more Japanese versions of the games. In the United States, there were fewer games, but they were still sold through special stores. But in Europe, the games were hard to find and not spread out well. The Neo Geo AES didn't have a big network of stores across the continent. In many countries, only a small number of games were brought in, often by smaller sellers or special shops. So, there were fewer official European copies than Japanese ones. This big difference directly affected the secondhand market. A Japanese version, even if it was the same game, was much easier to find. But the European versions, which you could tell apart by their different packaging, ratings, and extra stuff inside, became much rarer. Neo Geo collectors started paying a lot of attention to having a complete set from a certain region. Some buyers only looked for PAL or USA versions to keep their collection consistent. Since there were already not many games available, this splitting up of the market made people compete more for certain versions. In many cases, just where a game came from made its price go way up, sometimes even double what the Japanese version cost. The game itself, or how you played it, didn't change. What changed was how easy it was to find. So, how rare a game was in a certain region became something that made its value go up, no matter how good the game itself was. Up until the early 2000s, the AES market hadn't really become the crazy, money-making thing it would later be. Many games, even though they cost more than regular console games, were still affordable for serious collectors. People mostly bought and sold games through special stores, at conventions, or by talking directly to other fans. Only a small group of people were interested, and it stayed pretty much the same. But when online auction sites became popular, the market totally changed. Suddenly, games that were only available in one place could be seen and bought by people all over the world. A collector in Europe could now bid against someone in Japan or America for the exact same game. This bigger audience meant there was a lot more demand for the limited number of games available. At the same time, people started looking at the Neo Geo in a new way, culturally speaking. It wasn't just a niche console from the 90s anymore. It became a symbol of the best 2D arcade gaming ever made. While the gaming world was moving towards 3D, the SNK system became almost like a reminder of a time gone by. This changed even more when collecting old games became a huge trend. AES cartridges, with their big size and strong packaging, started to be seen as fancy, high-end retro items. They weren't just game discs. They were special, recognizable items that immediately made you think of a fancy part of the past. And that's when money started to play a bigger role too. Some buyers began to see certain games as an investment. The idea that there were only a few copies and no new ones would be made brought in people who wanted to see their value go up over time. This really messed up the balance between how many games were available and how many people wanted them. All these things together, being seen by everyone, becoming culturally important, and people hoping to make money, made prices go up faster and faster. It wasn't a sudden jump, but a steady, slow climb, because more and more people wanted games, but there were still the same limited number of copies out there. As prices kept going up, the Neo Geo market started to see more unofficial copies. You started seeing conversions. These were made from arcade MVS boards that were changed to fit the AES system. There were also full copies made with new parts, and cartridges put back together using original parts, but not in the way they were first made by SNK. These copies weren't always made to trick people. Sometimes, they were made so more people could play rare games without having to pay a huge amount of money. But having these non-original copies made the market a bit tricky. Being real became super important. Collectors started to carefully check technical details and materials, like if the seals were there and what kind they were, if the serial numbers matched up, the quality of the cartridge's plastic, how the label felt, and the colors of the printed inserts. Even small differences in the font, cut, or color could change how much it was worth. They even started checking the parts inside. Sometimes cartridges were opened to see how the circuit boards were laid out and if they matched SNK's original designs. This level of checking made buying a game a very technical process, not just about trusting the seller anymore. The result was that Neo Geo collecting became more professional. Special forums, comparison guides, and photo archives helped create common rules for checking if a game was real. The market started to look a lot like other collecting markets, where it came from, how well it was kept, and if it was certified directly affected the final price. In this situation, the value wasn't just about how rare the game was, but about being sure it was truly original. The item became not just rare, but also verifiable. The Neo Geo collecting market didn't just follow rules about how good a game was. How much a game was worth didn't just come from how technically good it was or how important it was in history. A lot of times, games that weren't considered very good or important to play ended up being super expensive just because there weren't many of them. It was simple. If only a few copies of a game were made, no matter how important it was to SNK's collection, it created a fight among collectors who wanted to own everything. The goal wasn't to own the best game, but to finish a set. In this situation, even a less popular game became super important. On the other hand, some of the system's best games, even though they were praised for how good they looked and how long you could play them, were made in bigger numbers. This meant they were easier to find over time. The demand stayed high, but there were more games available compared to the really rare ones. So, the prices stayed lower, even for famous games. So, the value for collectors was a mix of how rare something was and how much people wanted it, not always how good the game was to play. How rare a game was, if it was written down, became more important than what people thought of the game itself. This difference showed that the market for playing games was different from the market for collecting them. In the first one, people judged games by how fun they were to play, how new they felt, and how important they were in history. In the second, the most important thing was how hard it was to actually find the item over time. The Neo Geo wasn't made to be a display item. It was built to bring the full arcade experience right into your home. The goal was to give you the same great quality as arcade machines, not to create something rare for the future. Its place in the market came from technical and business choices, not from a plan to make it super exclusive. Because it was expensive, not many were made, and it was for a small group of people, it didn't spread widely from the start. This had an unexpected side effect. The number of game cartridges out there stayed pretty low over time. As games moved to 3D and the market grew worldwide, the Neo Geo stayed stuck in its own time. Not many new people bought it. As years went by, this accidental rarity became something special. People started to see the system as a symbol of a specific time in gaming, when 2D graphics reached amazing levels of detail and smoothness on its special hardware. The animations, the size of the characters, the rich colors, and the solid gameplay became the special marks of an era that was over. The market wasn't as global back then as it is today. The number of games made for different regions varied. They weren't all spread out evenly, and products weren't saved like they are in archives. This made them even harder to find over time. Today, some AES game cartridges are worth more than a brand new console. Not because they're technically better, but because of their historical importance and how rare they are. They show a part of the gaming world where great quality and limited production happened by chance, not because someone planned to make them super valuable. Their price today shows how unique that time was, not how much stuff is in the game or how powerful the hardware is. And with that, our trip down memory lane comes to an end. How many of these fun facts did you already know? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for more trips into the world of retro gaming. Thanks for watching Retro Legends, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay retro, stay legends.